All right, everyone, get ready for this. We're going deep on influence today, like how to use language to get what you want. We're cracking open Chase Hughes' book, The Behavior Ops Manual. It's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, you know what I really like about Hughes' approach? It's like he takes all the mystery out of influence and turns it into something anyone can learn,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And it's not about manipulation or anything like that. It's about really understanding how language works,
Yeah.
and how we can use that ethically.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Hughes talks about these three core goals for using language strategically. The first one, capture someone's focus. I mean, that's kind of obvious, right? You can't influence someone if they're not paying attention. But Hughes actually goes way deeper than that and explains exactly how to grab someone's attention.
Right. And once you've got their attention, then it's about directing their mental energy.
I like that.
You could think of it like channeling a river, guiding their thoughts and emotions towards a specific goal.
So you're like steering the conversation in a certain direction.
Exactly.
Okay, and his third goal is to enhance what he calls the six-axis model. What is that all about?
Imagine you're trying to get someone to see things your way. The six-axis model basically says there are these six key factors you got to pay attention to, someone's openness to new ideas, how focused they are, how much authority they perceive you to have their connection to you.
It's like a checklist for influence.
Yeah, and by using language strategically, you can actually shift these different axes in your favor.
Oh, that's cool. Like you're adjusting the settings for maximum impact.
Precisely.
One thing that really blew my mind was Hughes's take on small talk. I used to think it was just kind of pointless filler.
Yeah.
But he actually argues it's this powerful tool for building relationships and even gathering intel.
He even lays out this formula for what he calls effective small talk. It's 5 steps: listen, display, react, ask, and offer.
So it's not just about making noise, it's about being intentional.
Right. You have to actually be present and engaged.
Okay, break it down for me. What does each step look like?
So first, you really listen to what the other person is saying.
Mhm.
Then you show them that you're paying attention, by nodding, making eye contact, things like that. And then you react authentically to what they said. Maybe you say, "That's interesting," or "I can totally see where you're coming from." Then you got to ask a follow-up question, to keep the conversation going. And finally, you offer a response that relates back to their experience, where you share something about yourself.
It's like a dance, isn't it? Back and forth, creating that connection. But what happens when you hit those dead ends? The typical boring small talk answers.
Ah, that's where Hughes' concept of conversational threads comes into play. Instead of just giving a closed-off answer, like, "I work in finance," you could say, "I work in finance, but I'm actually transitioning into sustainable investing." It's really fascinating stuff.
So you're taking a simple answer and weaving in these different threads, to make it more engaging.
Yeah, you're giving them more to work with, more to connect with.
Oh, I like that. He also talks about this fun challenge called the Barkeep Challenge, right?
Oh yeah, it's all about taking these small talk skills and putting them into action in the real world.
Okay, how does it work?
So the challenge is to go to a bar or a party or something and try to introduce as many people to each other as possible.
So you become the ultimate connector.
Exactly. It's a great way to practice your active listening, sparking conversations and finding those conversational threads we were talking about.
I might have to try that one. Now, Hughes also dives into the importance of speaking with impact. And he talks a lot about descriptive language, painting a picture with your words.
He says that instead of saying something like "the traffic was bad," you should try to evoke an image in the listener's mind.
Hmm.
Maybe say something like, "I swear it took me longer to get through that traffic jam than it took Columbus to sail to America."
So it's not just about conveying information, it's about creating an experience.
Exactly. And on that note, Hughes has this list of words and phrases that he says you should absolutely avoid if you want to sound credible.
Okay, I'm all ears. Spill the tea.
You know those wishy-washy words like try, could, might, just, and honestly?
Oh, yeah, I use those all the time.
Well, think about it. When someone says, "I'll try to get back to you," it doesn't exactly inspire confidence, does it?
It sounds like they're already making excuses.
Right, and that's what you want to avoid.
Yeah.
These words make you sound hesitant and uncertain, not authoritative at all.
So how do we fix that? What should we be saying instead?
It's all about replacing those weak words with strong, decisive language. Instead of "I'll try to get back to you," say, "I'll get back to you by the end of the day."
Okay, so it's a small change, but it makes a big difference.
Right. It shows that you're confident, that you follow through.
I like it. Now, what about those moments when someone tries to interrupt you or talk over you? Hughes actually has some great advice on handling those situations, right?
He does. He calls it managing interruptions. And he gives you these specific phrases and techniques for redirecting the conversation and reclaiming your space without getting into a shouting match.
So it's about being assertive, but not aggressive.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm hooked. But are we ready to jump into what Hughes calls hypnotic language techniques? I mean, that sounds kind of intense.
I know it sounds a bit like mind control, but it's not about that at all. It's about understanding the mechanics of language, the ways that words can subtly influence someone's thoughts and feelings, and even their actions.
Okay, so it's like we're getting into the psychology of language.
Exactly. And Hughes breaks down these techniques in a way that's really clear and easy to understand.
So how does it work? What are the key principles behind this hypnotic language stuff?
Well, at its core, it's about directing the listener's mental and emotional energy, like we were talking about earlier. But it goes a step further. It's about using specific words and phrases to bypass their conscious defenses and tap into their subconscious mind.
So you're saying we can actually plant ideas in someone's mind without them even realizing it?
Well, it's not quite that simple, but Hughes does provide a whole arsenal of techniques for doing just that. And one of the most interesting is what he calls borrowing emotion.
Borrowing emotion, huh? That sounds intriguing.
It's about using specific phrases to evoke feelings and memories in the listener, even if they haven't personally experienced those things.
Okay, you got to give me an example.
Let's say you want to evoke a sense of nostalgia, and maybe remind someone of their childhood summers. You could say something like, remember those long summer days when you were a kid, the sun on your skin, the smell of freshly cut grass, the sound of laughter echoing through the neighborhood?
Wow, that's powerful.
It is, and it's just one example of how we can use language to tap into those deep emotional centers in the brain.
Okay, I can see how this could be incredibly effective, but doesn't it also raise some ethical concerns?
Absolutely. It's crucial to use these techniques responsibly and ethically. It's not about manipulating people or taking advantage of them. It's about understanding how communication works, so you can connect with them on a deeper level.
Okay, good point. I'm all for ethical influence. So with that crucial caveat in mind, I am ready to dive deeper into this linguistic rabbit hole. What else does Hughes have up his sleeve?
Well, before we get into specific techniques, I think it's really important to talk about the power of tonality and pauses. The way you say something can be just as important as the words themselves.
Oh, that's so true. I've noticed that myself. Like a well-placed pause can really make a statement hit home.
Exactly. It's like adding punctuation to your speech. A slight pause before a key word can create anticipation or draw the listener in and make your message much more impactful.
It's like you're controlling the rhythm of the conversation.
Right, and that gives you a lot of power.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all of this fits together. So what are some of the specific hypnotic language techniques that Hughes recommends?
He covers a lot of ground, but one of the most powerful is what he calls focus directing phrasing.
Focus directing phrasing. Okay, that sounds interesting. Tell me more.
It's about using questions and statements to guide the listener's attention to a particular thought or feeling.
So you're basically telling their mind where to go.
In a way, yes. Let's say you're talking to someone who's feeling anxious about an upcoming presentation. You might say something like, as you step onto that stage, imagine the feeling of confidence watching over you. The audience is eager to hear what you have to say. Their eyes are fixed on you, their minds are open to your message, and you feel a surge of energy as you begin to speak.
Wow, that's amazing. You're literally painting a picture of success in their mind.
Exactly, and that's the power of focus directing phrasing. You're guiding their attention towards a positive outcome and helping them to embody that feeling.
It's like you're planting a seed of confidence.
That's a great way to put it.
I love it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Hughes goes on to explain all these other techniques like contingencies and suggestion, implied directives, and double binds.
He does, and each technique offers a unique way to shape perceptions and influence behavior.
This is mind-blowing stuff. I can't wait to explore these techniques in more detail and see how I can apply them in my own life.
So are you ready to really unlock the secrets of powerful communication? We've been talking about small talk and capturing focus and even touched on, the basics of hypnotic language. But now it's time to unleash one of the most powerful tools you have.
I am so ready. Let's do this. What is it?
Storytelling. We're going to dive deep into the world of metaphor and storytelling because stories aren't just entertainment. They can be incredibly persuasive.
Really? I never thought of it that way. I mean, I love a good story, but I didn't think of them as like a tool for influence.
Oh yeah, big time. Think about it. Haven't you ever read a book or seen a movie that just totally sucked you in and made you feel all the feels?
Oh, yeah, for sure, like a million times.
That's because stories have this amazing ability to bypass our critical thinking, and just connect with us on a purely emotional level.
Okay, that makes sense. So how can we use this to be more persuasive? How do we leverage storytelling?
Well, Hughes talks about this technique called the third-party metaphor, and it's all about telling stories about other people instead of directly addressing the listener.
Hmm. Why is that so effective?
Because it's less confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're pointing fingers or telling them what to do. It's more like you're just sharing an interesting story
Mm.
and letting them draw their own conclusions.
So it's like sneaking in a suggestion through the back door while they're distracted by the story.
Exactly. Let's say you're trying to encourage someone to take more risks, step outside their comfort zone. Instead of just saying, hey, you need to take more risks, you could tell a story about a friend of yours who overcame their fear of public speaking and totally landed their dream job as a result.
Okay, yeah, that's way more compelling, and it doesn't feel pushy at all.
Exactly. And Hughes also talks about the power of what he calls third-party authority.
Okay, now we're talking tell me more.
It's basically like borrowing credibility from a respected source.
Hmm.
You know, let's say you're trying to convince someone of the benefits of meditation. Instead of just listing off the benefits, you could say something like, oh, I was just reading an article by this leading neuroscientist who said that regular meditation can actually rewire your brain for greater focus and resilience.
It's like dropping the mic with science.
Yeah, and it makes your argument way more persuasive because you're not just stating your opinion. You're backing it up with the credibility of an expert.
Oh, that's smart. And then there's that other storytelling technique he talks about, the alliterated friend.
Right. It sounds kind of weird. But research has shown that people are more likely to connect with a story if the character's name starts with the same letter as their own.
Wait, seriously, so it's not even about what happens in the story, it's just about the name.
It's crazy, right? But our brains are just naturally drawn to things that are familiar. Yeah. And that includes names that sound like our own. It just creates this unconscious connection.
So if I'm talking to someone named like Sarah and I want to tell a story about resilience, I should make sure the person in my story is named like Susan or something.
Exactly. Because Sarah's brain is going to unconsciously connect with Susan just because of that shared initial sound. And since your story is about resilience, it's more likely to resonate with her on a deeper level.
Wow, I'm starting to see how powerful all these subtle techniques can be.
And we're just scratching the surface. As we go deeper into Hughes' toolkit, we're going to uncover even more ways to use language to shape perceptions and influence outcomes. But before we jump into those more advanced techniques, I think it's important to address something that might be on your mind.
Yeah, I was just thinking, some of these techniques are pretty powerful, and I have to admit, a part of me is wondering, is this ethical? Could this be used to manipulate people?
That's a really valid concern, and it's something that Hughes talks about directly in his book. He's very clear that these techniques should be used responsibly and ethically.
Okay, good, because I'm definitely not into manipulation,
Yeah.
I want to use this stuff for good.
And that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It's not about tricking people or taking advantage of them. It's about understanding how communication works so you can use it to build stronger relationships, create win-win situations, and achieve positive outcomes.
Ethical influence all the way.
And we've covered so much ground already, all those amazing insights about how language can influence people.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing when you start to see the hidden patterns in our communication. It's like we've been given this secret decoder ring for human behavior. I love it. But okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to hear about those more advanced techniques Hughes talks about, the really juicy stuff.
Okay, well, we've talked about storytelling, but now let's get into social proof and how you can use that to make your message super persuasive.
Social proof. You mean like when everyone's jumping off a bridge and you just kind of follow along?
Well, not exactly, but you're
Uh-huh.
getting at the core idea. We humans are social creatures, and we tend to look to others for guidance,
Hmm.
like how to behave, what to believe, what to buy. We're way more likely to do something if we see other people doing it, especially if it's people we admire or identify with.
It's like that old saying, monkey see, monkey do, right?
Pretty much. Hughes calls this social proof language, and it's all about using these subtle cues to tap into that natural human tendency to conform.
Okay, so how do we actually use this in real life? Like, what would be an example?
Let's say you're trying to convince your friend to try this new workout class. Instead of just saying, hey, I think you'd like it, you could say, oh my gosh, everyone at work has been raving about this new high-intensity interval training class. They say it's amazing.
So you're not just giving your opinion, you're like creating this sense of buzz around it, making it seem like everyone's already doing it.
Exactly. And that makes your friend way more likely to want to jump on the bandwagon.
I see, I see. Are there other ways we can use this social proof language?
Think about those ads you see that say 9 out of 10 dentists recommend, or, that this product has over 10,000 five-star reviews.
Hmm.
Statistics, even if they're not always super accurate, can be super persuasive because they tap into our desire to make decisions based on evidence. You know,
It's like our brains just love numbers. They make us feel like we're being logical and stuff.
totally. And that's why social proof language can be so effective.
This is fascinating stuff. Okay, before we move on, I got to ask about these two techniques that caught my eye: negative dissociation and positive association. They sound kind of like psychological Jedi mind tricks.
They're definitely powerful techniques.
Mhm.
And it's all about subtly linking desired or undesired traits to things the listener already has strong feelings about.
So you're playing on their existing beliefs and biases to influence their behavior. That's pretty wild.
It can be really effective. So with negative dissociation, you'd basically connect something the listener dislikes to a behavior you want them to avoid. Let's say you're talking to someone who, like, hates being late, and you're trying to instill a sense of punctuality. You could say something like, people who are always late tend to be disrespectful of other people's time.
Oh, so you're connecting lateness with this negative quality disrespect, which they already hate.
Right. And with positive association, you do the opposite. You connect something the listener admires with a trait you want them to embody. Let's say they really look up to this athlete who's known for their discipline and work ethic. You might say something like, successful people, like that athlete, they understand the importance of setting goals and staying committed even when things get tough.
So by linking discipline to someone they already admire, you're making it more appealing.
Exactly. It's all about subtly aligning those desired traits with their existing values and beliefs.
This is incredible stuff. I feel like I'm gaining this whole new understanding of how language shapes our perceptions and influences our actions.
And that's what's so great about Hughes's work.
Yeah.
He takes this complex topic of influence and breaks it down into these practical tools that anyone can use.
But it's important to remember, as we've been talking about all throughout this deep dive, we got to use these techniques ethically and responsibly. Influence isn't about manipulating people or tricking them. It's about creating win-win situations and building genuine connections.
Totally agree. With great power comes great responsibility, right?
Yeah.
So as you go out into the world armed with these new linguistic skills, make sure you're using them wisely and for good.
Well said. It's been an absolute blast exploring the depths of the Behavior Ops Manual with you today. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of influence.
We hope you've learned a ton about the power of language and that you'll continue to explore this fascinating topic.
Until next time, keep those conversations flowing and those minds expanding.